The American Civil War, the Battle of Antietam. In the fall of 1862, along Antietam Creek in Maryland, the Union and Confederate armies collided. Emboldened by their success in the previous spring and summer, Lee and Confederate President Jefferson Davis planned to win a decisive victory in Union territory and end the war. What happened on this bloody one-day battle? History revisited. On September 17, 1862, McClellan's and Lee's forces collided at the Battle of Antietam, near the town of Sharpsburg. This battle was the first major battle of the Civil War to occur on Union soil. It remains the bloodiest single day in American history. Over 20,000 soldiers were killed, wounded, or missing. Days before this battle, the two armies had been gathering before finally clashing. The clash started in the early hours of September 17, 1862, when the Union troops launched an assault on the Confederate left flank. The morning was filled with the deafening roar of cannons and the sharp crack of rifles. General Joseph Hooker led the Union's initial attack, driving his men through the cornfields and woods north of Sharpsburg. The fighting was fierce and brutal, with both sides suffering heavy losses. By mid-morning, around 9 a.m., the battle shifted to the center of the battlefield. Here, Union General Edwin Sumner sent his troops into the fray, aiming to break through the Confederate center. The fighting around the sunken road, which would later be known as Bloody Lane, was intense. Both sides fought with ferocity, and the casualties mounted rapidly. The road became a horrific scene of carnage, with bodies piled high and the ground soaked in blood. Despite the Union's relentless assaults, General Robert E. Lee's men held their ground. Lee, ever the tactician, was reluctant to commit all his forces at once. He kept a reserve to counter any Union breakthroughs, which proved crucial in preventing a complete collapse of his lines. Lee and his generals, many of whom had trained together at West Point, were well aware of each other's tactics and formations. This familiarity influenced their decisions on the battlefield. Around noon, the battle's focus shifted again, this time to the Confederate right flank. Union General Ambrose Burnside was tasked with crossing Antietam Creek and attacking Lee's right. The Confederates had positioned themselves on high ground, making it difficult for Burnside's men to advance. Despite repeated attempts, the Union soldiers struggled to cross the bridge, later named Burnside's Bridge. By mid-afternoon, Burnside finally succeeded in crossing the bridge and pushing back the Confederate right. However, just as it seemed the Union might achieve a breakthrough, Confederate reinforcements under General A.P. Hill arrived from Harper's Ferry. Hill's timely arrival and aggressive counterattack forced Burnside to retreat, preventing a decisive Union victory. As the sun began to set, the battle continued to rage in various sectors, but neither side could gain a definitive upper hand. The battlefield was a chaotic and bloody mess, with soldiers exhausted and demoralized. By the end of the day, the fighting subsided and both armies held their respective positions. The battle was tactically inconclusive, with neither side able to claim a clear victory. In the aftermath of the day's brutal fighting, it was General Robert E. Lee who ultimately decided to withdraw. Recognizing that his army was too battered and depleted to continue the offensive, Lee made the difficult choice to pull back across the Potomac River. His decision to retreat marked the end of the Maryland campaign and prevented further immediate losses. However, this retreat also meant that the Confederacy lost its best chance to secure a decisive victory on Union soil. Lee's withdrawal allowed the Union forces to claim a strategic, if not outright, victory, as they had successfully halted the Confederate invasion. General McClellan did not pursue Lee's retreating army, missing an opportunity to potentially end the war. Despite the heavy losses, the Union Army's ability to halt Lee's invasion of the North provided President Abraham Lincoln the opportunity to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. This pivotal document added a moral imperative to the Union cause, transforming the fight into a battle for human freedom. Also, despite the Union's strategic success at Antietam, President Lincoln was frustrated with General George B. McClellan's failure to pursue Lee's retreating army aggressively. This inaction allowed the Confederate forces to escape and regroup. Lincoln had long been critical of McClellan's cautious approach and reluctance to engage decisively with the enemy. As a result, in November 1862, just a couple of months after the Battle of Antietam, Lincoln removed McClellan from command of the Army of the Potomac. He replaced him with General Ambrose Burnside, hoping for a more aggressive and effective approach in subsequent campaigns. But the war raged on. In the next episode, we shall revisit the Second Battle of Bull Run, also called the Second Manassas. Stay tuned.